This is the G-Shock DW6900. One of G-Shock's mainstays, this model has been around forever, and this particular shape along with the square are synonymous with the brand. Despite its popularity, the 6900 is a fairly large watch with a case diameter of around 50mm, as well as a sizable lug-to-lug measurement. Now with that in mind, check this out. This is a GD-X6900. It was a short-lived series of extra-large 6900s. In all honesty, I'm not sure if there was ever a huge demand for these. They were introduced in 2013, and big watches might have been trendy at the time, but I was a teenager back then, so I have no idea. As for the GD-X, it's more or less identical as far as visuals go. Everything is just bigger. The bands are screwed instead of using a spring bar, which is a nice change. Most upgrades are internal, where you're getting a longer battery rating of around 10 years, an LED backlight capable of auto illumination, world time, and multiple alarms. You can adjust time in both directions, while on the DW6900 you could only go forward. There's also a quick switch to 24-hour mode and DST support. The extra display real estate gave them room to put little indicators for active alarms and functions. It also contains a material under the bezel known as alpha gel, which improves shock absorption and vibration dampening. Alongside the launch of the GD-X were a few Bluetooth variants known as the GB-X6900s. I don't think these ended up being very popular, as this line only saw the initial release before being canned. But keep in mind this was back in 2013, and Bluetooth integration was still new to G-Shock, smartphones didn't have ample battery to handle Bluetooth, and apps still looked kinda basic. Tech-wise, the GD-X is a solid upgrade to the standard 6900, although it was more expensive at around $120 to $150 USD depending on the color. It starts getting dicey once you reach the dimensions. I mean, just look at this beast, it's ginormous. The standard 6900 was considerably thick already, and well, the GD-X looks like it needs to go on a diet. All in all, this line was only produced consistently for about 3 years, from 2013 to 2015. Then a couple of sporadic releases after that. The last release appears to be this collaboration with the clothing brand X-Large in 2018. G-Shock is one of the few brands that you can wear big without it looking ridiculously oversized, but the GD-X line fading so quickly proved that there is such a thing as too big. All this talk about the size may leave you wondering why I own one if I think it's too big. Well, the 6900 is my favorite shape from G-Shock, so that's all it took for me to try one. Here's the thing though, if you think me buying one is stupid, I've got 2. Actually 3. Yeah, my dumbass got 3 of these. This black and gold one might take the cake for worst negative display ever in a G-Shock. And the battery still seems fine, so it's not because of that. I got my first GD-X when I was in high school and must have been huffing some hardcore copium thinking this model actually fit well. Maybe I also thought I would eventually grow into it. I was either a wishful thinker or a blissful idiot. There is one thing about the size I'd like to say though, and I'm sure this yellow one is piquing your interest, so we'll get to it in a second. This watch, surprisingly, doesn't look too bad from a distance. Up close in these wrist shots it looks pretty stupid, but in these profile mirror type shots, somehow not bad, and not really distinguishable from a regular 6900. With the 6900 shape, the sizing is already a bit strange, but I believe it's because of the lug system. As long as this part of the watch, the bezel surrounding the face, fits within the bounds of your wrist, it won't look too bad and you can afford a bit of overhang. If you compare the 6900 to something like a square or a Casio, you'll notice that the bands curve away from the wrist as opposed to going more downwards. A popular mod has been to take one of these square bands and use it with the 6900. It's so good that G-Shock straight up did this with the latest NASA release, but who knows if that's the play moving forward. Also, despite the GD-X being a bit too big for me, I do find it oddly comfortable. The back plate is sorta domed and feels really nice against the wrist. Anyways, that's about all I have to say about the model, so here's a bit more on this colorway here. This is the GD-X6900E-9. This was part of one of the 30th anniversary collections called Lightning Yellow. They shat out so many G-Shocks that year that a few of these limited ones actually ended up being fairly easy to get. Also at the time the Canadian dollar was trading at about par with the US dollar, which is un-fucking believable these days. But yeah, I can't remember exactly where. It might have been eBay or Amazon, but I basically got this for retail as it just sat online. Obviously the yellow is a big selling point, but let's check out some of the other things that are a bit unique about this colorway. The display is positive and tinted yellow, which outside of this series I'm not sure has ever been done. Around the backplate has a gold color and the 30th anniversary logo on it. The buckle is black metal, which I also think is not done often, if at all. The buttons are textured, which isn't entirely unique to this colorway, but they aren't present on all GD-X models as you can see on my other ones here. Lastly, you've got this metal gold colored keeper, also with one of the 30th anniversary logos on it. I gotta do an aside for this right quick because in my opinion these metal keepers or band guards, whatever you call them, are just terrible. They just don't provide a good enough fit or enough friction to stop the band from slipping out. I mean, just look at this. It doesn't help that non-glossy yellow G-Shocks for whatever reason end up with a really smooth finish, but even on the more rubbery feeling models I don't think this works that well. So that concludes this video on the GD-X6900. These were good watches, but frankly just too big for most people. I can't imagine there were that many customers lobbying for bigger 6900s, so I really don't know why they decided to make these. But at least we got some cool colors and collabs out of it. That does it for this video. Thanks for watching.